I think Hamas, there will be a point in the near future where there will be a decision on they're not disarming. And when I believe the IDF would be asked to continue operations to do it by force.
Do you feel that Israel has managed to eliminate the threat of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad? Or do you feel that it has been downgrading, but that those two terror organizations are in the midst of replenishing their ranks only to pose a repeated threat against Israel in the coming years? How would you assess that from a national security point of view?
Absolutely, Hamas, the Palestinian Jihad in Gaza is not defeated. That's just fact. And I would never try to say otherwise. But it has been isolated. So while you can replenish your ranks, and I do, again, means and will. Yeah, they have the will. They've been radicalized uniquely in the Gaza Strip. All the containment strategy is gone. The ideals of just a smart wall with advanced technologies, all of these things that were October 6th are not there today. Of course, there is the peace plan. Of course, Hamas has said that we didn't say we'd disarm, but nobody, I don't think, I mean, would say that Hamas is as strong as they were on October 7th today. They're just not. They're just the border area is more secure. And for me, what is one of the most important parts is that the border between Gaza and Egypt is more secure, right? The fact that Israel and the IDF went to painstaking methods to ensure that there's not a single tunnel going between Gaza and Egypt is significant in talking about where does this go. Of course, today we could talk about numbers of fighters, but then we got to talk about how much rocket supply do they have left? How much arms do they have left? How many tunnels do they have left? How much ground do they currently maintain power openly in? All those would be a measure for me, Benjamin. But there is, of course, a lot of work to be done. But step one, which I think we've talked about in the past, that even the United States has not been able to do in wars, which is to isolate the enemy from any even possibility of resupply, rearm, of actual capabilities, right? And that's why disarmament is so important. But as of today, yes, they have the will, many within, although there is fracturing, and the fact that they were forced. I mean, I think the number one thing is that they returned all the hostages. So just from a power dynamic, that if you would have talked to somebody a year ago, said that, well, that's just not possible. It's never going to happen. Well, it did. And because they want to survive, so they made decisions. They agreed to this 20-point plan, which actually, if it's implemented, removes them from political power, every weapon, every bit. But there's so much more work to be done. I absolutely not believe they're defeated. And I think their time is coming when, just like we are talking today, I don't know by the time this publishes if there will be a decision on whether we have a peace agreement or a continuation of it, or do we go back to dropping bombs on Iran? I think Hamas, there will be a point in the near future where there will be a decision on they're not disarming. And when I believe the IDF would be asked to continue operations to do it by force, right? Because war is the pursuit of political goals through the act of force or the threat of force to achieve those political goals. But from a hard power, soft power perspective, Hamas is not an enemy as much so as it was on October 7th. And all of the strategic paradigm of containing it, all of these things, not applying intelligence resources to it, all these things, it's just not the same world. So it's not as big of a threat. It's definitely a threat until they are no longer in power and no longer have a single rocket. All the tunnels have to be destroyed. Like, there's so much work to be done. But this is probably a longer conversation about the implementation of the 20-point plan and which I think there is a short amount of time to say, like, well, they're not disarming. What do we do about that? There is a shelf life on that before it gets pushed into the realm of just kicking the can down because it's too hard. I don't think that's where we're at now. But there is a risk later to be in that realm of nobody wants to see an operation begin again. And to include, this is more your expertise, within the Israeli society. I mean, Israel is tired. It has been fighting nonstop since October 7th. It's definitely safer, but I don't think is that, I'm not of the belief that can go on forever.
You do bring some significant data points with regard to what's going on against Hezbollah. And again, I'm quoting, you say that according to IDF reporting, more than 1,700 Hezbollah fighters have been eliminated, more than 2,500 aircraft sorties conducted, over 5,000 targets tracked from the air, and more than 14,900 artillery strikes have been carried out against Hezbollah targets in Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, and southern Lebanon, hitting command rooms, intelligence headquarters, and operational planning centers. So this is particularly interesting to me because I want you to take on a specific aspect of the discourse, namely that in the midst of a ceasefire, Israel is safer from a national security perspective. Because I think that there's a tendency among some people to say, well, there's a contradiction here. On the one hand, John Spencer is arguing that Israel's safer from a position of national security, and I've already read out how you've defined national security. People can go back and look at that. But you're also saying, make no mistake, however, the threats still exist.
Hezbollah, of course, it's years of, its leadership is gone. It's all of its connections which keep it strong are broken, degraded, if not destroyed. Its supplies have been destroyed. Its rockets that are this ultimate threat that factor into risk of taking actions against it. You do have a Lebanese government. Of course, we wanted to in the last ceasefire to see what would play out, right? The Lebanese army actually doing activities to disarm, but you've had the Lebanese government kick out the IRGC leadership. You've had multiple operations that are all a factor of what is Hezbollah today, this terror state within a state, and how has Israel's actions impacted that and made it safer on its northern border, right? What is the buffer to that threat? Of course, the rockets are farther and farther reaching. So even the ideals of the Litani River, why was that decided? Because of the range of the rockets at the time. All is a factor. So hopefully that is enough to say legitimately, no, even just if you just do northern Israel is in a safer location. Israel is in these 5 strategic sites that are terrain does matter. And you and I have talked about this with, the length of Israel's borders and why it can never kind of give away its national security. You can say the same about the north and the strategic security and the depth of the enemy, the capabilities of the enemy, while we try to, and I think the world wants, and Lebanese, I want the Lebanese people to be free of Hezbollah and that there be enough safety within themselves to be able to do that, which is very complex, decades of, to include they have political seats in the government, all of these things. But from an Israel perspective, it is, of course, safer today on the northern border because Hezbollah is weaker, has fewer options for strategic survival. And for while it tries to survive, it will ultimately, of course, still be there. And we've had this talk with, the ideal of killing the ideology of Hamas in Gaza versus, there are lots of people that hate other people and there are lots of people that hate Israel. Doesn't mean they have a terror army within walking distance of communities in northern Israel that just don't today. And there is a much longer aspect of what does this mean for Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and others as we go forward, which is the uncertainty of that. But today, the northern Israel, Lebanon has a chance. Northern Israel is safer. I think that's pretty straightforward.